Chris Sims is here, NBC Sports. Chris Sims Unbuttoned, one of my favorite people in media. Very few people know the quarterback position better. What's going on, dude?
Hey, buddy. Good to see you, Kevin. Always good to talk to you and be on with you. Appreciate it. I'm good. Monday morning, right? You know, good week 10 of football. Lots to talk about, certainly. And looking forward to a good Monday night game tonight, too.
We will not bring up, like, you want to talk about being a dad, being in my mid-30s, being a white guy. Right before we came on, I was complaining about Restoration Hardware in Connecticut, okay? I didn't know my life was going to take that kind of turn, but here we are. So we're not going to get into that. We got too much football, frankly.
Yeah, there's better things. There's sexier things to talk about than you going shopping at Restoration Hardware. Let's not pain the listeners with that.
That's right. Exactly right. We're going to start here. So CJ Stroud, you talked about it this morning on your show or last night. And I think it's really interesting what's going on there, because I don't think he's regressed. I think it's the line. I think he's getting knocked on his butt. I think he's obviously the health of the receivers has been dinged up. Stephon Diggs, who was going to be an answer, especially in the intermediate part of the field, has not been healthy. He's out for the year. I'm going to start here. You've seen what from CJ Stroud, Chris Sims?
Well, it's a bigger problem than CJ Stroud. It's right. Yeah. I mean, he's not perfect, but CJ Stroud is still really damn good. And when you see stat lines, again, like we saw 2 weeks ago when they played the Jets on Thursday night, 10 of 30 with arguably the most accurate quarterback in football. I would say CJ Stroud or Joe Burrow can probably dot the I as good as anybody in the game when it comes to accuracy. That's not CJ Stroud. This is not like we're talking about Anthony Richardson where he misses the broadside of the barn every now and then. So that in itself, there's context in that numbers to go, there's institutional problems. You mentioned it. The injuries at receiver are an issue. It's second year of Bobby Slowick's scheme, and I do think people have caught on to that. I've said a little bit on my podcast and Chris Sims Unbuttoned that, yeah, it's the Shanahan scheme, but it's like the early entry level of the Shanahan scheme. And now there needs to be more to it and a next level and a next group of plays and things they do, and we've yet to see that. But the big thing is what you said, Kevin. It's the protection. And it's not only the protection of the men themselves, the Jimmies and the Joes up front, which there's issues there in the interior, but there's been games, whether you go back to Green Bay and other games too, where the schematics of how they block up front are an issue. And defenses have figured out how to expose them and how they block certain looks and kind of trick them. And that's been a big problem from them too. And that's led CJ Stroud to be under duress and not enough good plays or plans against the blitz from the Houston Texans offense.
It's funny. I had a discussion with a GM in the summer, and he was talking about all of the Fangio tree and the Shanahan tree and all of these trees, and he was saying, the dirty little secret is the innovators and the guys close to the innovators of the scheme can adjust and make changes. And the problem is, once you get 5-6 levels removed, those guys don't maybe have an understanding of the core scheme and they're just running a certain playbook. And so Vic Fangio can adjust. Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, they can adjust because they know what the original scheme looks like, what the whys of it, and then you're able to just kind of go from there. So I'll put it to you. What is the problem? You mentioned the protections, but like when you say people are kind of catching on to Bobby Slowick's scheme, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think it's, one, I would like to see a little bit more formation usage and pre-snap movement that we've seen, of course, from Shanahan, and we see from Houston at times, but it's not quite as aggressive as I would like. But the thing they do, without getting too deep into the weeds a little bit, is they're a slide protection team. So they might leave their right tackle one-on-one with a defense end, or let's just say their left tackle in Tunzel in this case. He's one-on-one. They feel good about that. And then they use the other four guys to always slide in the other direction, right, to take care of the 3 extra D linemen that are not being blocked by Tunzel, and then maybe a would-be blitzer or somebody that might add on. But the problem is, and I hope I'm explaining this right way, where you got Tunzel on the left one-on-one and now 4 guys sliding to the right, teams have shown like, hey, let's show the weak side blitz to the right, so they slide that way, and at the last second, maybe we'll drop out or whatever and bring the pressure the other way, and it's hard to get 4 people who are sliding in unison now to slide back the other way after the snap and do that. And that's where you hear sometimes teams are man-to-man protection teams, sometimes they're slide protection teams, and when you're a man-to-man protection team, it is easier to adjust on the fly and pass things off a little differently. And that's kind of what I'm talking about with Houston, that they got to find some new ways to figure out how to pass protect, and also wire CJ Stroud to be more involved in pass protection. The Shanahan scheme a lot of the times allows the center to make the call, and then the quarterback's just like, hey, they've taught him. Now I got to read the coverage and do that, but they've told me he's got the protection. And really high-functioning, high-level offenses, whereas Brady in his heyday, Mahomes right now, you see he's at the line of scrimmage. Hey, this guy, blah, blah, blah. Hey, 54, Ringo, laser, blah, blah, blah. He's doing all of that because he has a plan in case he does get blitzed, and everybody's on the same page. And I don't see that all the time with the Houston Texans offense.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go to a team. And by the way, the Texans are still pretty good. Let's go to some teams that are not good, and they both play in New York. I said this yesterday, and I keep thinking about it. I live in Westchester County, Giants country. My son Teddy's almost 2, and I've always assumed that he was going to be a Giants fan. Reason being, Chris, is that this area, this kind of Long Island is the Jets, Westchester is the Giants, New Jersey is kind of whatever. But you don't want him involved in the Jets misery thing. There's too much baggage. Everybody I know, I put it to Mike Greenberg a couple years ago. Hey, should my son be a Jets fan? He said, no, I don't want to. No, he shouldn't be a Jets fan.
Don't do that to your son.
But in the ensuing years, there is way less difference between the two organizations and how they function than there used to be. 10, 15 years ago, it would have been unimaginable to say it's better to be a Jets fan or the same to be a Jets fan than the Giants fan. They always made the right hire. They always had the stability, and they're just rudderless right now. So I'll give you the floor to fix the Giants. You start where, Chris?
Yeah, there's a lot there, right? And they are. I understand what you're saying, rudderless and all that. Now, I'll still sit here and contend with you that the Jets are still more disappointing because the Giants roster ain't the Jets roster, right? That's a big-time letdown. But I know everybody looks at it with the Giants and they right away go to Daniel Jones. And I understand. Daniel Jones, it's over. He's not the long-term answer. There's going to be a new starting quarterback there next year. But if they bench him next week or whatever after the bye week, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do, I'm not like, oh, now the Giants offense is going to take off. Oh, that'll do it. Hey, they've run the ball a little bit better here this year. But as we've seen, the offense is underwhelming. It's a lot of short throws. Some of that Daniel Jones' fault. He could be a better down the field thrower. But when I watch the film back, I'm not like, oh my gosh, there's people open everywhere and he's missing them. There's few and far between when they haven't even chances to throw the ball down the field that way. But I at times, and I'm a Brian Daboll fan, where I've gone, where is the creativity that I saw in Buffalo or when he was the OC at Alabama? They seem to do so much more. They're very simple on the offensive side of the ball with the New York Giants. And I think maybe part of that is also because the offensive line still can't pass protect, so that's an issue. Yeah, they've run the ball. Defensively, in an era right now where we're talking about receivers growing on trees, they're not talented enough in the secondary. They got a pretty good front four on the defensive line, but they don't have any guys that can match up with high-level weaponry type of offenses that way. So there's a lot of issues with their roster too. And the roster, I think, is the thing that bothers me more than anything. There's just not a lot of blue chip players on both sides of the football. And it's a bad time to be a Giants fan right now.
Yeah, and I don't know what they do. I mean, John Mara comes out and says they're safe. I don't know why you'd even say that, why you'd give the vote of confidence, because I just think that there was a lot more football to go. But I agree with
I don't
you.
think they want to make the in-season change. I don't think anybody's out of the woods yet as far as after the season, and we're going to be still evaluating how this looks on the football field. But would I be shocked if it continues to look the way it has looked, that they fire and clean house everybody after the season? I would not. Or maybe it's one of them go. I don't know. Maybe Daboll goes, Shane stays, or Shane stays and Daboll goes. I don't know which way it goes, but I think it's all on the table in New York right now as far as the Giants.
Completely agree. And John Maris, I believe, said Joe Judge was safe a month before he fired him. If I were to pick, and I don't have anything to do with it, I'm not even that in the weeds on the Giants specifically, even though I'm kind of in Giants country, as I said. Brian Daboll has shown a proof of concept of being better at his job than Joe Shane has at better at his job. I understand that the 2024 draft looks good, but I also think that a lot of times teams overrate their rookies when they get to play a lot, and they're getting to play a lot. because the
Yeah, the
roster
rest
isn't
of the team is not all that great, and I
there.
get that.
Right.
Yeah, they got some guys that are contributing to the football team
Yeah.
and all that, and that's good. But yeah, is it totally changing around their football team?
No.
And yeah, there's just not enough there altogether. We could spread the blame out, pretty evenly, but I'm a little with you. I think if there was one that would have to go, I would probably lean more with the Joe Shane aspect of that as well.
Completely agree. All right, other side of MetLife Stadium, down in Florham Park, there, New York Jets. It's a disaster, and I think everything kind of there's a last dance element, except without any success whatsoever. Devontae Adams probably gonna go do something else. Aaron Rodgers probably start a podcast. It's an old team, and there's a lot of guys there who are really expensive. If you're Woody Johnson right now, do I know we're going to blow it up because you've already started
Yeah,
the blow it up process.
right.
I would be surprised if Joe Douglas is around. I think he's 30-63. I believe the third lowest winning percentage of any GM in NFL history. So we kind of know the next steps there. But like and let's assume, by the way, he doesn't take an ambassadorship. There were some stories last week that maybe that something could happen there. Let's assume that Woody Johnson is making these decisions in 2 months.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you do to rebuild the New York Jets?
Well, I mean, I think one of the comments you said is kind of interesting, right? It's not a team. It's a collected collection of just some high-priced vets where they've tried to act like they're a team, but they don't play like that. It doesn't feel like there's a cohesiveness with the football, with the New York Jets football team, like you see from maybe a Baltimore Ravens or Detroit Lions or the Kansas
Yeah.
City Chiefs, right? There's not that. There's a disconnect there. And I think it first starts with the owner. Yes, I thought that was a horrible decision to fire Robert Saleh. I don't get that. They were going into a game where on a Monday night, if they won, they were in first place in the division. And the wheels have fallen off ever since then. I know they beat Houston Texans 2 weeks ago on a Thursday night, but even in that game, it looked real crappy for 2.5 quarters. And then it looked like okay. And as we talked about earlier, Houston's good, but not great. I don't think they're as good as everybody thinks they are. The Jets, one, Rodgers, yes. I mean, not nearly the player he once was. He's way too conservative. He's Charlie check down. He never wants to make aggressive throws down the football field, and they can't run the ball consistently either. So there's issues there. On the defensive side of the ball, it's lack of physicality. I mean, you can run the ball on them, and there's no X's and O's schematical genius with them on the defensive side of the ball. It's Seattle cover 3. It's very basic all the time. You saw Arizona tear them up yesterday. I mean, as far as pass game, run game, whatever. But I think the thing I look at, and this is where the Jets are so disappointing. I mean, the Jets are extremely talented still. There's still a ton of young guys on the roster where you go, hey, the future's not that bleak as far as even if it's after Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. I know they need to get a new quarterback. I get that. But wow, I mean, Joe Douglas has done some really good things there. His biggest issue has maybe been coaching hires. And those are the things you can certainly second guess. But it's over for the Jets this year. I don't think Aaron Rodgers will be back, Devontae Adams, all that. And I think they have a nucleus there that's good enough that, a good offseason, free agency, and another good draft to where they can still build something and, have something to say before this decade is out and turn it over in a good way and not too long of a time.
When you see an organization like this, and maybe it's just one quarterback changes everything, you get a Mahomes type or whatever, but like, it seems to me that changing the culture of an organization is the hardest thing to do because normally culture is ownership and owners don't want to change.
Yeah.
But when you see a team that is consistently losing, is there a way to get out of that without drafting a Mahomes type? Is that hiring a guy? And I don't think Bill Belichick's going to take the job.
Well, yeah,
but like
it's a special, right?
Yes,
right. It's going to take a special.
Parcells 30 years ago,
right? Or yeah, exactly right. It's going to take a special, strong personality to come in there and get everybody, all the ducks in a row.
Yeah.
Even straighten out the owner a little bit to be like, hey, I know you're the owner, but I've been doing this. Just hey, in their own little magical way, which I think Bill Parcells had of being like, hey, I like you, I respect you, but shut up and listen to me, okay? Right? That's
I'm
the
locking
way.
the door. I'm locking the door right now. You're not coming in.
Yeah, and that's the where, like, I look at a guy like Mike Vrabel who's out there. I think he's got that type of personality to could kind of change a culture, do that type of stuff. But yeah, it's going to take something like that, right? And yeah, you don't always need the franchise. Oh, it's got to be Mahomes. there's other guys out there you can win with. We saw the transformation of Jared Goff, and the Rams wanted to sell him down the river for whatever they could get for him to get rid of him. But then they got a right team with the culture and a coach that believed them and built them up the right way, and they got everything going the right way in that direction as far as Detroit's concerned. But it's going to take somebody of, I think, some stature and somebody who's got a very strong presence to change things around there with the Jets.
Vrabel was my initial idea only because Jim Harbaugh, who was that, has taken the NFL job with the Chargers. I was surprised.
He's doing the similar thing, a West Coast version of the Jets, dumpster fire, dysfunctional.
Yes,
right,
exactly.
Right.
And just saying everything is me. My friend Greg Rosenthal from NFL Network went to a Chargers camp, and he referred to Jim Harbaugh as King Charger. Like, he's taken over the organization. Like, everything's about him. I think that he said that when they're at training camp, when the team ran on the field, they said Jim Harbaugh and the Los Angeles Chargers. Like, it's a cult of personality, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because everything else in Chargerdom has been about losing, and Jim Harbaugh said we're about winning. And I know it's not as simple, but like Sean Payton, another good example.
Exactly right.
Told me, I used to hear the rumors. People would say, "Oh, Sean Payton's going to go to Dallas." Sean Payton, exactly what you're saying. Sean Payton doesn't want to have to deal with Jerry Jones. He wants to deal in New Orleans. Gail Benson and Tom Benson were not watching film with Sean Payton,
right?
And now the Penner family, they're not exactly saying, "Hey, what's going on third down packages here?" Like, you need an owner who can manage. Sorry, a coach who can manage the owner and wants to manage the owner. So I think there's a lot there, and my thing is Jets fans deserve better.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And the coaching staff, all that's one thing we know is going to get totally blown up. And the Joe Douglas aspect of that, I'll be interested to see where that goes. But that was the risks they took when they went down. Hey, they messed up. You can certainly get on him, and I'm part of that. Zach Wilson at number 2, that hurt them certainly. But then not building around him the right way and supporting him was definitely a big issue. And then when you hand the keys over to a guy with Aaron Rodgers who, I don't know, did he have ulterior motives, whatever else? He wants to stick it to Green Bay. I want one more, shot in the spotlight and everything that way. And you roll out the red carpet and you make him King Rodgers, like you just talked about King Harbaugh. That's not the way to win football games. When your quarterback's king and making State of the Union addresses all the time, but then also going to Egypt in the most important time to practice in the spring, that's not good stuff. And that wouldn't happen with Parcells or Harbaugh or Vrabel or any of the places you're talking about.
Real quick, and it's not just because I do a radio show with Mike Tannenbaum. Everybody keeps comparing this to Brett Favre with the Jets. Brett Favre with the Jets had way more success than this. They were one game away from the playoffs. They started hot. That was way more successful than this was. And they also didn't get a bunch of Brett Favre's buddies that year.
Exactly right. They were close. I was on the Tennessee Titans that year on a 10-0 football team, and that they came in and beat us in the first game that year for our first loss for the year. But you're right. And then Favre got a little banged up late in the football season, didn't play his best, but certainly a better experiment than one we're seeing.
Completely agree. Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words: Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the types of benefits only Caesars can offer. Hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. Caleb Williams, I have a couple of questions, but I'm gonna start here.
Yeah.
How much of what we're seeing, not throwing touchdown passes, I mean, he's been sacked, he was sacked 9 times yesterday.
Right.
The body language was awful, but I also don't blame him. And I saw a thing yesterday, I talked about it on my show on Sunday, but then I actually saw on Twitter someone put it up, and I'm glad they did. There was a moment there where, first of all, Caleb Williams wears the sacks on his face.
Yes.
Like, you can see when he's going down that he's having a bad time, which I think is probably just a very human reaction, right? You've dominated every level of football. You've been able to escape the pocket. You've been able to escape pressure, take one step, get out. Nobody's ever been able to touch you. All of a sudden, NFL speed is bearing down on you. You're upset about it. But there was a moment, sack 7 or 8, where not only did a Patriots player, Anthony Jennings, pick Caleb Williams up because no Bears player would do it, the guy who got the sack, he patted him on the head like, "Hey, man, keep going."
Yeah.
A Patriots player.
Right.
And I've never seen that in my life. I've seen offensive linemen not pick up quarterbacks before. We've seen that before. But I've never seen the other team pick the guy up and be like, "Hey, man, I know this sucks."
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'll just there's a lot to get to with this, but is this all the Bears' fault? Is it some Caleb Williams looking disappointing? Where do you go with
Yeah,
this?
it's a little of all of it. I mean, I think it's one. It does happen every now and then. There, believe it or not, defensive linemen will have they have a soul and a heart, and they understand when like somebody's getting crushed or killed, and like it's rough, and especially sometimes the rookies in those scenarios.
Yeah.
You get an older veteran who actually does have a soft spot for somebody in that situation. I mean, they were on fire offensively. They go into a
Yeah.
bye week and they've totally lost their mojo. And they look like the offense that we saw in the first 2 weeks of the season where it was really strugglesville. Back to like, we can't run the football. We're not protecting it very much. And yeah, Caleb Williams missing throws, also being a little greedy at times, also holding the ball in the pocket a little too long at the times. So you can blame a little bit of all of it. But I think with the way the Bears look right now, the comments you're hearing in the locker room, the defense, the way they're playing, the Hail Mary, all that, there's institutional problems in Pittsburgh right now. It's teetering. I mean, in Chicago, it's teetering on. Like, it feels like, wait, are we going to talk about like firing Matt Eberflus here in 2-3 weeks or whatever? It seems right now it's inevitable that's going to be the case after the season unless something drastically changes. But yeah, can't protect. Before the bye week, the offense was motioning and shifting and doing all this cool stuff. It feels like they've gotten a little basic and stagnant once again. And we know not being able to run the ball. And I will blame Caleb Williams and Washington. He tried to play hero ball. He was looking to I'm going to show Jayden Daniels. I'm going to show everybody I'm the first pick. I'm back home in my home area. And he tried to hit the home run too many times where you're like, no, this guy's open here. Stop trying to throw the one-on-one bomb down the football field. He does have moments of being a little too greedy and wanting to make the big play. And I saw a few of those yesterday where I went, wait, the shallow crosser's open. Throw it to him. Don't sit here and pat the ball and go, ooh, but I want to throw the 20-yard in cut behind it and turn down that completion. And that was one of the negatives about Caleb Williams when you watch college film, is that at times he did look for the big play, the big throw, a little too much. I still have faith in this kid. I think he's got incredible talent. I think he's smart. He's doing a lot at the line of scrimmage, but he's just got to learn that the NFL is a little different. And to your point, you're not going to be Magic Man. I can do this all myself at this level with these guys you're playing against. And I think he's in the process of trying to adjust that.
If you don't like hunting for the big play, do not watch Cam Ward against Georgia Tech on Saturday.
I did. I watched it. I know. Well, yes, that can be that way too. Exactly right. Hey, let me sit here. Yeah. He's open, but I'm going to pat the ball and sit here because I want to throw something else.
He's open, but I want to do 40 yards.
Exactly.
20 yards.
And that's when you can get yourself in a problem.
I actually joked about this. I don't want to do much on this game because I'm still depressed on it. But like the second play of the game was a 70-yard touchdown to a tight end who was wide open.
Yes.
And I kind of feel like he looked at the defense, the Georgia Tech defense, and was like, "Oh, this is easy.
Yeah,
like,
we're gonna do this all day.
Show.
Right.
Yeah, we're gonna do this all day." And then you end up losing because you're in showman mode. And once you get to the NFL, it's probably hard to lose that. And you think about Caleb Williams and trying to, knowing how easy it is. And I was joking last week about there was a play against Arizona where they brought guys. I think Buda Baker was brought against Arizona, and you could tell that he was like, "Oh," Caleb was like, "I know what to do." And then you got 5 guys in his face. All of them are moving with him, right? Like it wasn't like he was. It was, and then he eventually had to just rocket the ball about 50 yards out of bounds because I think he was like, "Oh, I used to be able to shake these guys.
Exactly,
I can't do that anymore."
Right? No, that's the learning process of the NFL, and he's going through that. It's ugly right now. 100%. It's like the really good running quarterback that you go, wait, we want you to sit in the pocket and go through the reads. And he's like, wait, my whole life I looked at number 1, and if he wasn't open, I run and good things have happened. And those are just some of the habits you're going to have to break Caleb Williams out, and I think that will happen. But I don't know if it's going to happen on Matt Eberflus's watch or not. That's going to be what we got to watch for.
Why wasn't – so you had – I looked at your quarterback rankings. You had – Caleb Williams number 1, but then you had Jayden Daniels, and your designation for Jayden Daniels would be number 1 in other years, which I think is probably quite accurate. And maybe if you redraft, it would be number 1 in this year, but we don't redraft, and it's also very early, and we've seen ebbs and flows in quarterback rankings before.
Right.
My question is this: looking back on it now, Do you think Caleb versus Jayden should have been closer? Do you agree with the? I mean, I didn't really see anybody saying Jayden was supposed to be number one last year. Saw a couple of people say Drake May was number one. That was obviously a minority opinion.
Yeah.
Like looking back on it now, having seen this, should that conversation between Jayden and Caleb have been closer?
Yeah, it probably should have been. And then I tried to make it clear, and Caleb was my clear one, but yeah, as you said, and I appreciate you bringing that up because, sometimes people don't listen to context and all that, where I was constantly like, any other year other than like Joe Burrow coming out, or whoever, just like a bona fide number one. See, I mean, Jayden Daniels is the number one draft pick. There's no question about that. But Caleb's pretty special in his own right. But yeah, I think that maybe we didn't give enough credit for Jayden Daniels' size in the pocket, his ability to kind of stand in there with people around him and make throws, the consistent ability to make the right throw. It might not be as sexy as some of Caleb Williams, but bam, it's on the money. It's on the money. It's on time. All of that, right? And then I think the other thing that, I didn't even give enough credit for is just how unflappable he is. He's just the same guy. Nothing ever seems to bother him. He is cool, calm, and collect all the time, and he has been awesome. Yesterday was the first game of the year, other than maybe the first game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to start the season, where you went, whoa, Jayden Daniels is getting his first NFL experience here. Welcome to TJ Watt and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yep. You can't run around. There's going to be some crazy coverages, and it's going to be a little ugly. And that was good experience for him. But either way, he still did a pretty damn good job and led them to, a 10-point lead there early in the fourth quarter, and they were in control of the game.
And it's not his fault he didn't get the ball back.
That's right.
Last play.
That's right.
They got hard counted, so they could have gotten the ball back, and then we would have seen. Let's do some quick hitters. A quarterback in the NFL we should be talking about more.
Oh, a quarterback in the NFL. Oh, okay. Hold on. I like this. Quick hitter here. Hold on. Let me look. Oh, Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is who we should be talking more about right now. It's not going to be big-time numbers, 350 yards, do that. You just said it's King Harbaugh. Yeah. It's defense, it's run the ball. It's defense, it's run the ball. Okay, now they're overplaying the run. Hit Quentin Johnson or Ladd McConkey for a big throw. That's not very easy to play that way. He's doing it really at a high level. And when Quentin Johnson, Palmer, and Ladd McConkey are healthy, they have enough firepower to go along with that run game and that awesome defense that they're dangerous. And I'd say watch out for the Chargers. I think they're one of the better teams in the AFC.
If any team, so Bills, Chiefs is Sunday. If any team beats the Chiefs in the AFC this year, it's who?
Ooh, okay. Well, and you're just talking regular season as we sit here?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, in January.
In January. Okay, well, I mean, I'm, of course, going to put Baltimore in that conversation.
Of course.
Right. And I still sit there and look at Cincinnati and go, if Cincinnati gets in, no one's going to want to see them walk into town with that offense and Joe Burrow the way he's playing. But if there's a team that I look at that they lose to, I still think it'll be Baltimore. I'm going to choose them. I think Kansas City and Baltimore are the two best teams in the AFC. And then it's debatable who's next. Steelers, Buffalo. And again, I'll say the Chargers, I think, deserve to be in that conversation with the Steelers and Buffalo as that third team in the AFC.
Last thing for you. We did Badasses last year. You picked Warren Sapp. You had a great story to go along with it. Well, I guess we'll just call us Badasses too. You got to put another person on the badass wall. It's not Warren Sapp. Any level of football that you've been around, whether it could be college, it could be any times in the pros, it could be your times on the damn Patriot staff there when you were doing it. It could be at NBC, for God's sakes. You have the floor. Give us a second badass, Chris.
Wow,
Sims.
I've been with some badasses. I really was. I was fortunate to be around some big stars and all that. Woo, where do I want to go? Right away, my head is going to either Kevin Mawai, the Hall of Fame center, right, and Tennessee Titans, where I just want to say, like, we had a bunch of badass mofos on the defense on that football team. And when Kevin Mawai would go in the locker room and turn down the music because he thought it was too loud, none of those mofos would mess with Kevin Mawai. So that's one guy that I certainly – and then I want to just give Brian Dawkins – I'm giving you two. I'm cheating just because when you said it, they both came. And Brian Dawkins is – I never saw a one-day transformation of a human being like I saw Brian Dawkins ever in my life. I mean, the whole week Monday through Saturday, it was, oh, hey, Chris, how you doing? Yeah, good to
Yeah.
see you. Hey, man, yeah, God bless you, man. Yeah, good job. Hey, way to work today. Good job. And all of a sudden, you came in the locker room on Sunday, and this dude was doing like freaking backflips and somersaults and jumping around and yelling and going crazy like he was Wolverine. I never saw anything like that. And then, of course, he brought that intensity on the football field. It was incredible to see. But, yeah, I got a lot of these kind of stories for you, but I'll save a few more for the next time I come on with you.
Yeah, next year. Orlando Franklin, who played with B-Doc in Denver, had a really funny story about how nice Brian Dawkins was, all that stuff, but he would always be in the cold tub, always taking care of his body. And I think he was in the cold tub longer than anybody. And Orlando said one day to Brian, again, nicest guy in the world, said, hey, why are you always in the cold tub? And Dawkins, his entire demeanor changed. He looks right at Franklin and just says, I'm preparing my body to inflict as much damage as possible.
Yeah, that would sound like him.
Like, oh my God, I'm getting out of here.
Exactly. And that's why football players are crazy. They are. And it's crazy in a good way. But yeah, I was around, Tampa those early years, Tennessee Titans when the Jeff Fisher teams was full of psychos on it. And then I got to Denver for my 1 year and certainly had some guys on that football team Brandon Marshall was on that team. You want to talk about another guy, one of my good friends, but when it came to game and plan, another level of intensity and psycho-ness in a good way that you need, that was special. Man, that's some of the things that make these guys special and Hall of Fame type talents.
All right, Chris Sims unbuttoned NBC Sunday Night Football with our buddy Devin McCourty, our new buddy. I'm just making we got to get Jason Garrett on.
You got to get him on. I know you do. You got to give that redheaded guy some love. Get him on here.
All right, Chris Sims, thanks so much, buddy.
All right, always, Kevin. Good seeing you, man. Be good. Talk to you soon.